Welcome to the Tone Lounge Podcast, the definitive music industry and gear podcast with Jonathan Gilmet and Frank Fleckenstein.
Hello, welcome, good morning, good day, good evening, good night, good afternoon, wherever we catch you, whatever time zone you're in. Welcome to the Tone Lounge Podcast, the show where we talk about MI-related stuff and everything guitar-related, because we are both guitar players. My name is Frank, I'm your host, and joining me today, my wonderful co-host, Jonathan Gilmet.
Also known as the Duke of Voxington.
The Duke of Voxington. How are you doing, mighty sir?
I'm doing very fine, working on a lot of new content for the YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. I'm on a weird-ass quest right now with figuring out if I want to keep pedals or if I just want to use straight amps and just a few select pedals. I've been on this journey. I have a 5150 behind me, the combo version. Mm-hmm. Right over there, it's off screen. You can't see it. I have a Rivera M60 with a Mesa cab. I'm trying to determine whether I prefer amp distortion or pedal distortion, depending on the amplifiers. So it's a bit of a journey. I'm trying to record everything so I can listen back and really make up my mind. I have a lot of pedals. I don't want to figure out, do I ditch most pedals and just keep a few boosts and that's it? Or like, what permutation do I like?
Wow,
and
okay.
I'm trying to sort that out so I can make either one big video or a series of videos just to kind of help people figure out, like, especially for people who are starting out with guitar. It's like, what amp should I get? What pedal should I get? Well, it depends what you're going for. And if I can distill that into content that is easy for people to digest, then I'm going to do it. If it doesn't work out, then at least I'll know personally what I want to keep. I have too many amps, too many pedals, and it just doesn't make sense anymore. I'm at that point where I need to sort this out. So that's my journey lately. Maybe that'll come out into a series of videos, or maybe I'm just going to speak about it on here on the podcast and no one's ever going to see those videos. I don't know just yet. But it's a kind of like first world problems.
Yeah,
that only,
sort of is, right?
yeah, that only a spoiled musician with too much gear would actually waste energy on. And I was like, what do I keep? I have too much shit. That's a nice problem to have, I think.
It definitely is a very nice problem to have, you know, if you have too much shit. But I understand where you're coming from, because I was on a similar journey a little while ago where I was like, do I go with an amp as sort of a pedal platform and then like have my pedal board with several like drive and gain staging options and a little bit of like modulation and time-based effects? Or is that all not necessary? And I just have the amp at a certain level where I can use my guitar to tell him, you know, to stay clean or to like kind of saturate. And if you want to give the whole thing a kick in the nuts, I just activate a boost and whatnot. So I was in a similar journey. And I didn't come to a final conclusion. That
really?
Was no. To me, it was like both things had their charm in a way, in a sense. Like obviously, if there's no pedal active and you have a very solid, clean platform, like an amp that sounds great clean, it's fun to play with. But same thing goes for an amp that's slightly cranked, you know, and then you do the rest with pedals. So both things have their charm. The quest that I'm on right now is, as someone who creates and builds pedals, you always want to sort of reach maximum compatibility in a way. You know, you want your pedal to be great in front of some of the traditional amps, but you also want it to be great in front of a modern voice amp. And the question is, how do you achieve that without having to buy like a shit ton of amps? You know,
What you're talking about right now is part of my journey.
Oh,
so
okay.
to give you an example, what I've found so far with all the pedals is that there are some pedals that they're versatile and they can be used with everything, but they're kind of lackluster. What I mean by that is that they're not exceptional pedals. They don't have a mojo or magic or whatever. They're functional. They'll work with everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got some pedals that if you can find the right combination of guitar and amp, they are absolutely stellar. But then if you take the same pedal and put it through a different amp with a different voicing, all of a sudden it's kind of So to actually give a concrete example, the Crowther Hotcake, phenomenal with a Vox, okay with a Fender.
So I've heard.
Yeah. And really not all that great with my Supro 1624T, which I thought, it's going to have a really cool tone. No, it sounds boxy. The mids don't make sense. And it feels compressed with that amp. But through the AC15 or any other like AC style amp, they are spectacular. Now, someone would say, yeah, that pedal was voiced specifically for an AC30, so you can't expect it to work well with everything. And I think, well, you have to try shit, right? You have to see, can it work with something else? And if it does, then you'll know which permutation. But I don't think that Mr. Crowther is going to be like, my thing works well with AC30s, but I need to make it work with a deluxe reverb. And I need to make it work with this amp. I think he just focused in and just went in and said, that's what it's built for. If you want to use it with something else, that's great. But that's what I made it for. And maybe I think that might be the thing that most pedal builders are going for. They're going to make a pedal. They're going to have a few amps. And they're like, this should cover the basics, but I really can't guarantee it's going to work with everything that I build. So if you have like maybe an AC15, a deluxe reverb, and maybe some kind of Marshall, like a DL40 or whatever it's called. So you have like more consumer grade stuff. Maybe you can cover more ground. And then when you try it with like vintage amps, you discover whether it's fucking phenomenal or not. But in your case, I mean, you would have to get a bank loan and have like 60 amps. That just doesn't seem feasible, right? So how would you go about that? Like, what would be the amps you would go for if you wanted to be able to cover more ground?
Yeah, that's the thing. And by the way, the thing you were saying about the Crowther Hotcake, I think if I'm correct in what I read, that was the same story, or the same kind of story, sort of happened with the OCD from Fulltone, where Mike Fuller was like, I want to build an overdrive that works particularly well with very bright Fender amps, and still, you start to use the overdrive in front of, let's say, a super reverb or something. It doesn't sound, it's not going to destroy your ears because it's like super brittle, and there's too much happening in the high end. And apparently that's what the OCD original was built for, or conceived for, so that you could use it in front of like very bright amps. And he had a couple of Fender amps that he used to develop the pedal. Now, to answer your question, obviously there are a few ways I could go about it. I have Musik Produktiv, not so far away. And with not so far away, I mean it's like still a 2.5 hour drive, and then I have to go 2.5 hours back. And I could potentially take my prototypes, that I've built, and go there, and they have an amp room with like 50 different amps that are all connected to a central station. I could plug my pedal in front of all these amps and just push buttons and change the amps and the cabinets that I want to test them with. Yeah. However, I can't make changes on the circuit there because I can't take my workshop with me. So
That's right.
I would have to do different iterations of the same prototype, which is particularly challenging. And well, but that's the only way that I could think of to play with real amps. Now, what I've tried and I found the results to be extremely interesting I've used the Genome plugin from Two Notes, and I plugged my pedal or my pedal prototype into the DI input of my interface, and then I've dialed in different amps, which are obviously amp simulations, on the plugin, and I was surprised how well that works as a reference. It's not obviously you're not going to have the same sort of feedback interaction, because then the whole thing goes out through the studio monitors, and then so obviously like the feedback you'll get is going to be different. However, in terms of like tone and sound and sound shaping, I found the results very positive, very satisfying for my process of, okay, I need to make some changes to the unit. I need to swap out a couple of components, whatever. And so I was like, I could potentially just get a hardware unit. Those work even better, whether it's like a Helix or a Fractal or a Quad Cortex or you name it,
Yeah.
A hardware unit, and those are known to work very good with pedals in front of them, and use that as a reference and potentially get the same results as with the Genome plugin. And I think I right now I think that's a good solution, for my situation. However, if you ask 20 others, they were like, no, that's cheating. That's cheating. And it's never going to sound the same. I don't know. I beg to differ, to be honest. After the experiences I made, I beg to differ.
What I wonder is, for a pedal builder, instead of owning multiple amps, wouldn't it be easier to get something like the Synergy amplifiers, where you just take out the preamp section so you can try out maybe like a blackface amp, something like more like a Vox, Marshall, or high gain? Because, I mean, you would only have to buy the preamp sections, right? Instead of, you'd have the main amp and you'd just take out the preamp section and try different ones.
True, but it's still a pretty big loan.
That's what I was saying with the bank loan.
You need the amp.
Yeah.
You need the amp, and then each module is $400, I believe. Yeah. And if you want to cover a lot of ground, you would need, I don't know, 10, 12 different of these modules. So it's at least like another 4K plus the head, which is like 1.5K. I'm not sure. So it's still a pretty big investment. And then the question is, you're changing the preamp, but you're not changing the power amp. Power amp stays the same.
That's true.
And the power amp certainly has some responsibility in the whole chain as well.
Yep.
So while with a simulation, you also the power amp gets simulated as well, and you can even go as far as crank the power amp without burning your speakers. That's the other thing. But I'm actually considering getting at least for my process here, getting like a hardware unit. The last time I had a modeler is like 10 years ago, and it was an XFX2.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a modeler since then, so I would have to check what the best option is. But I'm very inclined to do that, and just for my process here, because I can then get obviously to a certain point where I'm like, okay, I'll take these 3 prototypes that are like certainly like different to some extent, and then I can make the trip and go to the store and test it, with a cabinet and loud and like with the real feedback and like moving in everything, and then I can decide, okay, prototype 2 is the one.
Is renting something that is available where you live? Because I know here, like music stores, you can rent amplifiers and stuff like that.
No.
So no,
renting is very, very big in the US. I know that for a fact. And then obviously renting is something that bands do when they're on tour, because nobody wants to transport their, Ampeg SVT 8x10
Yeah.
over from the UK to
I wonder
European
why.
mainland. I wonder why. So yeah, that's something that's kind of my quest right now that I'm on.
It's a good quest because it's something that I don't think many people think about when they buy pedals, is the logistical nightmare that it can be for a pedal builder to try to test their pedal with everything. I think there's a little bit of that R&D that kind of falls onto the public. Like sometimes you get a pedal at home and you're just some schmo like me and you go, okay, there's a pedal there and it's made for bass, but what does it sound like on guitar? I don't think that companies have time to try all that shit out. Like, what does an accordion sound like with a big muff? I don't know. Let's try it before we put it up for sale. Like, they're not going to think like that, right? It's like they're sticking to this. They know it should work. And the testing out portion of it comes to the public whenever they buy pedals. It's like, should I get a tube screamer with a Vox? Well, they're not really made for Vox. Says who? I'll try it. If I don't like it, there you go, right? So you can't be... I don't think, especially if you consider how much money smaller boutique pedal companies make in terms of, the money that they make from sales, they can't go out and buy every single amp and have that, especially like you're working, you don't have a dedicated shop, right? You're working from home, you're building these things. You can't have 50 amps.
Just here.
Just that little room there. You can't have 50 amps in there. That makes no sense.
No.
And no one can expect you to do that too. So maybe my opinion would be to get something that works with the stuff that you're building. So let's say you're working with some kind of modeler that gives you an approximation of what different amps sound like. And maybe you just go with that. And then when you try it with real amps, pick a few and you say, okay, maybe I go with a British type voicing, an American one, and maybe some high gain stuff, and see how it works. And then if there's any tweaks, maybe do you work with breadboards?
Partially.
Okay.
Partially with breadboards.
Maybe that.
Yeah. That's obviously that's one way to do it. I mean, I have 3 iterations of the Blue Guitar Amp 1 here that I can use as reference, and they cover a lot of ground, obviously. Yeah. But they don't cover everything. And obviously at some point it's like, okay. And I really, with the pedals I've made so far, I feel like, and also from the feedback I get from people that have purchased one, I sort of achieved that, maximum compatibility, where like an all-you-can-boost, for example, I've had people that put it in front of a Marshall and they're like, oh, super happy, especially because they were able to get that flubby low end out and, get a really creamy in-your-face lead sound, for example. But I've also, talked to guys who play Fender-esque sort of amplifiers, and they were happy too. So to have a pedal or to make pedals that are like very, very universal, it's definitely something that I try to achieve. And then there are other pedals where I'm always asking myself, what do you use that with? There are pedals that emulate the sound of a Soldano SLO amp, which is like this like saturated, screaming in your face tone. And it's like, with what would you use that other than a clean platform?
Yeah, and even then, that's also, I think it really comes down to the person playing it. If they like that tone and they think that, like an SLO 100 type pedal sounds great through like a 15 watt little combo amp, that's cool. It probably doesn't sound like the real deal though.
Is it though?
I almost guarantee it. But if that's the sound that they're looking for, because they can't get that kind of gain from the amp.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But at the same time, getting the voicing of an actual amplifier is almost impossible. So most people are doing like approximations of it. They're trying to look at the schematics of the amp, trying to distill that down into a pedal format. I think it's very cool because sometimes you can get really unique tones that are nowhere near what they're aiming for, you know? But if you were to use, like, to your point, would you use an SLO 100 type pedal with a Soldano? That'd be redundant, right? That wouldn't make much sense. So it's really made to bring that sound to something else, a smaller combo amp that can't get too fucking angry.
It's like, do you remember when we were talking about the Marshall pedals, the new ones that they made, and then they were demoing them, and they demoed them in front of a Marshall,
which is redundant.
Oh, look, it sounds like a JCM 800. Well, you're playing it through a fucking JCM 800. Of course, it's going to sound like a JCM. You can put a clean boost there, and it's still going to sound like a JCM 800 because you're playing one.
Exactly.
Come on, you know. Come on, play the 800. Come on. Open the door. There's a bomb in there.
It's the one thing I can't do. I can't do a good Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. I tried. I just can't get the.
It's easier. It's easier for me because I'm German, and if you can sort of imitate an Austrian accent, you're halfway there. You're already halfway there, and then the rest is just. Look, you gotta watch the movies. Gotta go before the California.
I've never heard another German person that speaks English that sounds anything like him. I think it's unique to him. I've never heard anyone else sound like that. Like most Germans, they'll sound a bit more like you know, where you can tell just a little bit that there's some German there. But him is like the whole throat thing and like, where the fuck does that come from?
I mean, the guy used to be like a super hefty bodybuilder. He was in the Austrian army, so has to come from somewhere. But he definitely he certainly has a unique voice. That's for sure. And I think what I've heard once, he was coached by so many voice coaches. First, they wanted him to get rid of the accent. Then, when it became sort of his trademark, and especially after the first Terminator movie, it said, no, don't lose the accent. You need to. That's your thing. Okay, now he has a different. So I think maybe they like overly confused his vocal cords, and that formed the unique sound. I'm not sure.
Have you ever seen that movie with them? I think it's called Hercules in New York.
It's terrible.
With the really bad overdub. Like they just got rid of his voice and they put like an American, like it sounds like a 50-year-old with a really like nasally voice.
But there's an original version as well. You know that, right?
I've never seen that one.
It's amazing.
Never ever seen it.
It's amazing because like there are different versions of Arnold. There's this Arnold, the one that acted in this Hercules in New York movie, where he still sounds very young and he still sounds very Austrian, because he didn't adopt the American sort of intonation.
Okay.
Not at that point. I was like, no, this is not Hercules. This is a traitor. That's how he sounded,
Wow.
He didn't say traitor. No, it's not a traitor. It's very very different. Then there's bodybuilding Arnold, where he's like halfway there. He has already adopted some because he's already living like in the US for like 2 years or something. And he explains this weird thing in the gym with when we go to the gym when we pump, there's this feeling we can get the skin gets a tight feeling in the muscle. That's that's this Arnold. And now we have you can call me Arnie, you can call me Schwarze, the Governor. That's this Arnold. It's different iterations of Arnold.
I'm so glad you were able to give me that lesson. So now when I go back, I'll listen and I'll go, did you know that was that version of his accent? Become like a historian of Arnold.
It's V3 of Arnold.
Yeah.
V3.
Nice.
Open the door, there's a bomb in there. Yeah, collateral damage. Where were we?
I don't know.
But let's take this as a bridge to another topic. We talked
hard segue.
Hard segue, exactly. We talked about this offline before we started recording. First of all, thanks to everyone who commented, liked, and shared the episode that we recorded with Danish Pete, Peter Honoré. Honoré. Because, well, A, obviously, everybody liked it very much. B, we were kind of the first guys that he was talking to out of his break, taking the break from constant content creating. And it also had a very, very positive impact on me, in the sense that I think that in the episodes before, especially when we were sort of criticizing what's currently happening in the MI industry, where there's sort of a downward spiral with stores closing and then distributors, shutting down, and people losing their jobs, and sales are shitty and whatnot. And I think we were not focusing very much on the negative, but we were certainly talking about a lot of negative things. And I don't think that's wrong per se. I think it's good to also make people aware that there's this industry that they only sort of see from the view of a customer, of a client who walks into a store. They have no idea what's going on behind. They have no idea that the store that they're going to buy their strings, to buy their stuff, probably is struggling financially and is about to close. So I think it's good to make people aware. And I don't regret that we also looked at all this negative stuff. But I think moving forward, I would like to also emphasize the positive aspects of these times, especially in terms of availability and accessibility for musicians these days. Because, and I'm going to quote Daniel Steinhardt, who said at an event on a panel where I was, he said that this is the greatest time to be alive as a musician, because there's so much stuff out there, and it starts at, you can get stuff for free, actually, when it comes to certain plugins, for example.
Yep.
And if you want to, and you have the resources, you can spend and get the instrument of your dreams. There's everything between that. And I think that's a positive thing. I think it's a very positive thing that you can buy. And I don't like some of the companies that are building cheap Chinese plastic pedals that are supposed to sound like this and this pedal. I don't like, but there are people who don't have the same resources that, maybe you and me, and then there are people above us. And those people also should have the possibility to explore tones, and to find their musical voice. And if it wasn't for those $20 or $30 pedals from Behringer or whoever, whatever, insert Chinese company name, they wouldn't be able to.
Yep. I 100% agree with that. My optic, or if you want my view on this, is that between super affordable and way out there crazy expensive is a whole spectrum of gear that you can acquire depending on your needs and your budget.
Yeah.
And if we're able to nitpick and say, oh, I don't like this company, I don't like this company, I don't like this company, that's actually a sign that it's a good thing, because if you only had 5 companies right now because everyone else is falling apart, you couldn't really afford to say, I hate this company, I hate this company. What's left, buddy? If there's only 5 companies out there, you're going to have to put up with it. But considering the abundance that we have in terms of guitar pedals, guitar cables, picks, capos, speakers, there's not a whole lot of speaker manufacturers if you really consider it. But when it comes to cabs, amplifiers, there's a lot. But there are some of these very specific companies that are starting to go away. And I think it's kind of important to address that. Like, if you consider tube manufacturers, there's not as many as before. Components,
like 4, right?
Yeah, there's about 4. If you consider speakers, how many speaker companies can you name right now? Probably less than 20, right? So they're solid, they're staying there, they're not going away, but there's no competition. There's no one else coming into that sphere to compete with speaker companies, with tubes. So although we do have abundance, there's some of these critical elements that if we don't, as musicians, focus on and pay attention to, they're going the way of the dodo bird, essentially, right? Yeah. So there's a metamorphosis happening with our gear between the analog stuff and the digital stuff. And we as musicians sometimes still bitch about, I don't like modeling, I don't like digital, or amps are too loud, I don't want that, I want something more discreet. But if we didn't have the abundance that we have now, we'd be restricted to just a handful of choices.
Yeah,
and I think that's the sign of how lucky we are. We can discriminate against tube amps or modeling or tubes or solid state. We have all that right now. I remember, I don't know when you started to play guitar, but I started when I was really young in the late to mid 80s, so around 87. You had solid state or tubes. That's all you had. There was no modeling.
No.
There were, as far as I remember, there weren't that many practice amps that were great. Most of them sucked. They were horrible, right? And you always had to spend money, so you had to get the really crappy amp, then get to a somewhat decent amp that you could maybe gig with, but then realized really quickly that you didn't have the power to be able to keep up with the 16-year-old drummer that plays like a caveman. Mm-hmm. So then eventually you would upgrade to something that was louder, but it still wasn't the cream of the crop, right? So maybe some kind of PV amp or whatever, or crate. And we only had so many steps we could take to upgrade, whereas if you look at kids now, they can go to a music store, buy a Boss Katana, have all the effects that you could ever need at that particular point in your life, have a whole slew of amplifiers and all these different things in one fucking amp. Yeah. I don't remember that being available when I was 11 years old. That shit wasn't around.
No, it's amazing to see that you can, like, there's something for every budget. And I think that's important, because up to this day, there are still industries that can't do that. They can't do it. You know, if I look at the cycling industry, for example, which is like another thing that I'm connected with, because I'm a passionate road cyclist, that it's almost impossible to get a decent bike that you don't have to, give to maintenance at least 6 months after purchase. And sure, you can do a few things yourself, but it's not the same as with an electric guitar, Yeah. You can, with an electric guitar, for example, or even with an acoustic guitar, you can learn how to put new strings on. There's so many tutorials on how on how to set it up properly, on how to set up the intonation, all these things. And the tools you need, they're most likely come with the guitar. So it's not like you need like specific tools. No. Where like with a road bike, for example, you need a wider array of tools, and then you need to, and there are some things that you can't fuck up. You know, if you're too tight on one screw, you might screw up one thing, and then you have to go to the workshop anyways. So
okay.
There are still industries that cannot offer the same level of accessibility, which is something we can definitely happy about and proud of. Do we live in difficult times? Yes, but we're not the only industry affected by it.
No,
you know, everybody's affected by, you know, the downfall of discretionary spending. It's for everybody, because everybody's keeping their cash together at this point. There's nothing we can change about that, and but you know, that's at some point that's going to change. You know, always has been. After every like sort of crisis and like economic distress, comes a time where people are like more relaxed, and then, you know, things are going to eventually turn around. We've lost a few things in the meantime. We've lost a few stores in the meantime, and we've lost a few maybe, you know, distributors at that time. And we also spoke about a lot of YouTubers seem to have a hard time as well, because they see that their content isn't as much viewed and clicked and interacted with than it was before, because, you know, the focus has sort of shifted towards like more rational things.
Mm-hmm. See, I know we talked about this previously, but for anyone that's kind of new to the channel and doesn't know, we are both, beside this particular podcast, we both are doing YouTube to a certain extent. You had a very active, for quite a while, YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. It's still active. You still do stuff with it, but you're not as dedicated as you used to, because now you have a job, you're building pedals and stuff. So balancing that is a bit of an issue on my end. My job was, for the longest time, just doing YouTube. And we can both, I think, attest to the fact that it's really hard when you're doing gear-specific videos to keep the same level of attention as someone making a video about conspiracy theories or aliens or, you know, makeup tutorials, right? We can't compete with that, because it's so geeky and it's so specific to a niche of people that are probably less than you would expect, right?
Yeah.
How can you compete with that? If I sit there and I talk about a piece of gear, the intention behind the audience is very different. If I'm watching a video about, here's a conspiracy about, you know, Tartaria, and you're like, what the fuck is Tartaria? So you sit there and you start to watch it, and you're really intrigued, and they can craft a video that's 30 minutes long, and you're going to sit on the couch, and if it's really cool, you're going to sit there and go, well, there's some crazy fucking beliefs out there, but this was a fun video. If I make a 30-minute video about, I don't know, a microphone or a pedal, are you really going to sit there and watch the whole fucking thing if you're looking to purchase? Right? If you're just going to, okay, I'm wondering, there's a pedal right there, it's $50, should I buy it? Go on YouTube. Are you going to watch the 30-minute video, or are you going to watch a 5-minute video? So our retention is very different, because the people coming to us, they just want to know, is this good or not? Do I pull the trigger on this purchase or not? That intention is super different than sitting on your couch and going, all right, let's go on YouTube and peruse the videos and see if there's anything interesting out there. Oh.
Now you could even go a step further and say you could make shorts, because now YouTube Shorts gives you up to 3 minutes, and shorts are like a thing where, you know, the interaction is so fast.
Great point.
But if it's captivating enough, because it's like, it sounds good and the presentation is good, I think like with 3-minute shorts, you could probably grow a pretty big audience.
Yeah, and I think it depends also. Like if you look at someone like I forget his name, Keith Williams, I think his name is, the 5 Watt World.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so he makes videos where he's going to give you the short history of a piece of gear. He's got a bunch of people helping him write the script, do the research. He doesn't put out a video every day, right? So it takes him a while to put out those videos, but those videos for people who are really nerdy and want to know the history of maybe like the P-Bass or Gretsch pickups or whatever it is, right? You sit there and you watch it and it's interesting. For someone like my wife who has no interest in gear, she's not going to sit there and watch this. She's going to be like, this is boring. So for the type of audience we draw in, there's a certain mindset. And I think for YouTubers who are like looking at their stats right now, me being one of them, it's the realization that I need to purchase shit as soon as possible. So I'm going to watch all the videos on this pedal is kind of going the way of the dodo bird, because people are a little more hesitant on pulling the trigger on shit and being impulsive when bills are piling up. There's tariffs, there's all these different things. So I think the collective mindset of musicians is a little more reserved now. So
It is,
the
yeah.
impulsivity of watching a video going, I'm pulling the trigger on this, it's going to be like, well, that's cool, but I have pedals that do the same thing. And for right now, I don't think I'm going to pull the trigger. This is
Right.
having an impact on views, retention. So people who have been doing the same thing forever are going, what's happening to my channel? I'm losing all these views. Are people not liking me? Do they not like the content? Do I have to review everything? What's going on? It becomes almost like, am I going to be out in 6 months because no one's watching my shit anymore?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I mean, even channels who have like literally millions of subscribers are like, you told me before about, what's his name, Davey 504 or something.
Yeah, something like that. You have a
like
Italian bass player. Yeah.
that recently uploaded a video where it was like, hey, you haven't seen any content on this channel because I'm right now I'm like dealing with lots of stuff and I'm having a hard time motivating myself. So instead of like doing stuff that's boring and is not going to keep you, entertained, I'd rather don't do anything,
Yeah.
And I admire that to some extent, because I still see a lot of YouTubers just, being in the same circle. I have to upload 3 videos a week or 4 videos a week. And some of them are trying to find like new sort of categories. I've seen Henning Pauly, like on Sundays, he always sort of does like a rant video where he's like, he's like riding around on his e-bike with a 360-degree camera and like showing the landscape of where and then he's in one corner, like behind a green screen, like sort of baked into the image and like ranting about stuff. And I'm like, on one hand, it's sort of like there's some comedy in there to me because he's like in the corner and I was like, well, I need to talk about a few things. I'm like, oh, Henning, really? And on the other hand, I'm like, oh, come on. It's, not even first world problems.
Well, they're unique to people who do this day in and day out. And I've seen a few, like some of my favorite channels right now are either sticking to the formula, but the views are not going up. Their channels aren't blowing up. Their subscriber rate has stagnated. And I've seen others, people I really enjoy watching, and it hurts to watch them because it's clear they're going through stuff and they're not finding their footing anymore. So they're kind of tossing like the spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I feel like that too. And that's why I'm not filming, because I don't want that to reflect on my own videos on the channel. man, it takes forever. It's like slowest pace ever, but is that important? And I think to me, it isn't anymore. It used to be. Like you look at the metrics, you look at the numbers, and you think, wow, there must be something wrong with me. And it's not me. I have nothing to do in this equation. I think people are just, they don't want to spend their money on trivial things anymore. There was a time, like we're talking about the golden age of gear, and with this golden age comes gold. You have to spend that gold on shit, right?
Right.
And people are pinching their money now. They're being hesitant. They're like, okay, well, this pedal's coming out. It looks cool, but I don't need it. I have another pedal that can do it. It looks like it could be better, but is it worth my money? Should I just wait it out, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I also think that we also have reached a certain like saturation of stuff that's already circulating in the market, especially in the used market. And then the other thing that I feel whenever I talk to people about like the stuff they're using, I also feel like a lot of people have settled with like a certain with a certain type of gear. Like if you look at the modeling community, the guys who are like, I bought myself a quad cortex or whatever it is, and I can do everything with that, and I play in this band, and we play covers or top 40 or like, I don't know, party bands or whatever. I can do everything with that. And at home, if I want to shred and like play some metal tunes, I can do that as well.
Yeah.
And I don't have to carry any stuff with me. And I literally have my rig in 2 bags. I have a guitar and I have and a lot of these guys, they have settled. And I feel like a lot of them are not coming back. At least not the ones that have played amps before. Yeah. Because they're like, sure, is it great to crank an amp and like feel what's happening in the room? Yes, we had that topic when we talked with Pete.
Yeah.
Where we're like, yes, it definitely does something to you. It does something to your playing. And those people at some point made the change over to modeling. They have experienced it too, but they have settled anyways. And they're finding ways to optimize their personal playing experience and obviously their happiness with playing what they are playing, and they've settled. So obviously there's an entire group of people that you can't impress anymore. Whatever you come up with, you can come up with the newest amp. Doesn't matter. In 2 months, somebody's gonna have like a capture of that, and you can like just download it to your quad cortex. Somebody comes around with the next big like sort of pedal that is even closer to the original from I don't know when. Not impressive, because you can't impress these people anymore.
I would love to be like that. I actually admire people that can do that, like where they figured it out, they know this works, and they've stopped the quest. I feel like a rabbit, or not a rabbit, but a hamster in a wheel sometimes with my quest for gear.
Yeah, I feel you.
I go on tangents. I try stuff. I go, oh, you know what? I've never tried this amp before. Maybe I should try it. And then I try it, and it's either I love it or I hate it. There's no in between, right? There's no gray zone. So people who can figure this shit out, and they say, okay, let's say I'm going with the Kemper or the Quad Cortex or whatever. Man, I'm settled. I'm going to stop the insanity. I'm just going to play this. It doesn't matter to the audience. It only matters to the musician who's eternally unsatisfied. And that's what I am. I'm always trying shit. Like right now, I'm on a kick with the 5150. Right now, if you were to ask me, I'm in the honeymoon phase. Like that is the best fucking distortion I've ever heard out of an amp.
It's a great amp, man.
It is a great amp. And that's why I got it. But it sat in my house here for a year without me using it because I was on a Vox kick, and then I was on a Supro kick, and then I was trying to convince myself I could maybe use like cheaper gear and the stuff that no one wants, and maybe there's some magic there that no one has demystified, and I'm going to find it. It's like it's stupid. It's shit that goes in your head that makes you waste time. It makes things really not that fun because the thrill is the seeking for something. But when you get the answer, if it's not the answer that kind of tames the lion and makes you, quenches that thirst where you're like, okay, I'm good. Now I know I want to play a Hot Rod Deluxe for the rest of my life. I'm going to sell everything off. That shit never happens with me. I'm always eternally looking for gear. So right now I know I'm at least I can acknowledge I'm on a stupid quest. I'm trying this amp. I'm going to love it until I decide I want to go John Mayer-ish. And now the 5150 is not going to cut it. So I'm going to need maybe a Dumble style amp. Right? You know what I mean? It's like it never stops. And then if you go down that route, it's going to be expensive. So you're going to have to sell everything. Dude, it has to stop somewhere. And I think that's where a lot of smarter musicians than me have gone, okay, no, I'm not watching YouTube videos. I'm not going to let the temptation happen. I'm going to settle with what I have. I have other adult priorities. So you're like, okay, maybe I should restructure my videos because I didn't want to, but maybe I am trying to tempt other musicians into gear. This is a brand new pedal by blah, blah, blah. It's the best fucking thing you've never played. And I'm going to prove it to you. Links down below. We've all done it. And I think people are tired of that stuff. Yeah. I'm tired of it. I'm in my own studio and I drive myself insane with gear. If I could settle on modeling and I'd be like, I don't care if it doesn't give me that feeling. I stopped today. This is it. I would love to be able to reach that kind of utopia in my own head. I don't know if you struggle with that at all. I don't know if I'm the only one that needs pills for this, but
I mean, I have a few M's in storage, and they sit in flight cases because they're heavy. I have no place for them here. They sound amazing. Some of the best M's I've ever played, like Diesel VH4. An old dual channel, dual rectifier, like really good stuff. But I don't use them. I don't use them, and I don't have the space for it. Sure, I have a 2-note Torpedo Captor X, and I could like set them up here and then crank them, and it would be amazing. Yeah. But it's like, who has time?
Yeah. And when are you ever going to play out with these monsters?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, I used to love it. And people would, like, I know that after shows, because I had sort of a rack with casters so that I could move things quickly. And the head was down, and then I had like a couple of rack units, mostly older stuff, really, because I wanted to keep things as analog as possible. And then I had a matching diesel 4x12, also like in a case, and the sound was earth shattering. And I had a I don't know, after each show, lots of people, it's like, oh, it sounded so great. What are you playing there? And people like, hey, can you, will you give me your setup for free? It's like, no, forget it. And but that was when I was still like out playing concerts, and it was worth playing concerts. These days, it's like, especially in the scene for like heavier music.
Yeah.
I don't see people going to shows. I see people going to festivals. It seems like festivals are the thing. But then try, like, as a local band, try to get into like one of these festivals where people actually go. There was a festival just around the corner from here. Just around the corner, meaning like in the Netherlands, but like 2 hours away. And it's only bands that have a name that you'll see there. I haven't seen any unknown band on one of these festivals, because the people who organize these festivals, they want to go with a safe bet. And the safe bet is to, if you want the whole thing to be like sold out and people enjoying themselves, you need to have like all the bits. It was Fear Factory, Mastodon, Opeth, Obituary. You know, it was like those type of bands.
Staples.
And then obviously people go.
Yep.
It's
also it's funny too, because a few months back I saw a show here in Edmonton. There was 3 Days Grace, Wage War, and there's another one. I forget their name. They're a really big Danish like metal band. I forget. No, not The Haunted.
In Flames?
Nope. They're more rock than metal. I forget their name. They're big in Europe. They're not so well known here.
Okay.
In Canada, maybe the name's going to come back to me. I should know their name, but I keep forgetting it. Anyways, 3 bands, not a single one of them had an amp on stage. Not one.
Of course not.
Yeah. So everything was direct to board with maybe I know the Danish band whose name I can't remember. I know those guys are playing Kempers for sure. 3 Days Grace, I'm not sure, and Wage War, I'm not sure either. But all 3 bands clearly didn't have a fucking amp on stage. Not one of them. No. And I don't know. That was my first experience with no amp on stage, and to me, it sounded weird. And even my family, I hadn't spoken to them about it because I figured it's just a guitar thing, and they're like, "Was it weird that I could only hear really the drums from the stage?" I'm like, "Okay." If non-musicians are picking up on it, there's something to it. I mean, they're a little more exposed maybe than non-musician family because, you know, they've seen me play and stuff. But they were like, the sound was weird. I was like, yeah. My impression was that this idea of going like direct to front of house gives front of house full control over the sound. So if you have a shit technician, the band is doomed. It's not going to sound all that great. So it really requires someone behind the console that really is good at nailing that tone because they have way too much control.
Or alternative B, what I used to do when I was like for that short time, I was using the XFX in a band project where we had to play with in-ears and they had like a very dedicated light show and everything was controlled by a laptop. Like even the patch changes in the XFX and the light show, everything, like the laptop was sort of the heart of the band, which was kind of weird. And you're walking around and you have the in-ears and you have a receiver, obviously, because you want to move freely on stage and not be hooked on a cable. So you're walking around with the receiver and with obviously with a sender that sends the guitar signal to the rack. They had one big rack. That was that. What I used to do is I would prepare the sound in the XFX in a way so that the guy on the other end of the hall only had to make louder or like more or less volume. So that he would not need to touch anything. Not a high pass filter, not a low pass filter, nothing. I prepared him like a perfect sort of guitar signal where the guitar is supposed to sit, which if I played it like alone, like it would sound kind of weird, to be honest. But in the context, in the band context, it was like full on
mix ready.
And the feedback from the venues that we played at was like, the guy was like, okay, I just put the volume where it needs to be, and that's that. And do you have a dedicated sound for like lead and solos? And I was like, yeah, I do. Yeah, can you change to that? And I changed to that, and he was like, okay, great. I don't have to do anything. I just leave it here.
That's not an experience I lived, but at the same time, I stopped playing like full-on gigs back around like 2009. So I was used to, if I wanted to be louder in the mix, I had to have some kind of boost on my pedal.
Right.
I had 6505 with a 2x12 orange and a 4x12, I think it was PV cab back then. And I remember this was the time where we were still having to control the dynamics on stage in order for the front of house to be able to deal with something. So they would tell you during sound check, like, take it down, or you're going to get louder than this, right? And you had to obey that. You had to play by that rule, because if you were too fucking loud on stage, you just wouldn't be in the monitors. And it looks like a lot of the professionalism that musicians should have acquired after playing gigs and had, the sound guy saying, turn that shit down. That doesn't need to happen anymore. You have to tell them to turn that shit up because you can't hear yourself, which is kind of like the strict opposite of what I grew up with. But in a sense, if you have a really good sound technician, that's not going to be a problem, especially if they're dedicated to your band. They follow from venue to venue. Yes. And they know the set list. They know when to play with the faders to get people in and out of the mix. And that makes more sense than just putting it in the hands of someone that's never heard your shit before and you give them complete control over your sound. To me, that's a little iffy. I would do it if I was in a band. I'd shut up. But to me, it would always be in the back of my mind, like, this guy doesn't know when the solo kicks in. So,
But that's what happens these days. You don't have to spend money anymore on people that carry shit around, because you essentially have like one rack with a couple of campers or whatever you use. And then if you're a bigger band, you probably have a drum tech, a guitar tech, somebody who takes care about the merch, and then one guy, like a dedicated sound guy.
Yeah.
And before, you had double or twice as much people, because you had someone who would take care about like getting in and out all of your stuff, all of the heavy shit, which is not necessary anymore. So obviously, the money that you economize by going with this principle, you can definitely pay someone to get the sound right every evening and get the sound right according to the venue. I know Miss Sugar have a very difficult to deal with sound live, especially when it comes to different venues, because you run into issues especially with the low frequencies. You run into issues with like standing waves and stuff like that. I've seen bands struggle with it at a venue here in Cologne, where I've seen in the same venue, I've seen Opeth and Mastodon was absolutely terrible. Sounded absolutely horrific. Really? And then a month later, Meshuggah played. Perfect, because their sound guy is a genius, a wizard. He probably looks at the venue, scans it, and it's like, okay, I know what to do. So that definitely makes a difference.
So the lesson here is, if you're going direct to front of house, the band hires their own sound guy, sound girl, whatever you want to call it. That way you have consistency. They know where the solos are. They know, how to automate all the faders, and you're not putting that in the hands of someone who's had 15 beers just before. They're syndicated so they can sit there and no one's going to fire them. And they're like, I don't give a shit about this band. I think if ever I had a band, I would get my own sound man, for sure.
Definitely. 100%.
Yeah.
We've just passed the 1 hour. We wanted to keep it at 1 hour. But I just wanted to do a little bit of house cleaning. So the next episode, and I'm going to prepare everything that's necessary for it. The next episode, we are going to redo the giveaway shuffle.
Oh,
for the
that's still a thing?
For the two pedals that we are still giving away since 1998.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So just as a reminder to everyone, if you are publicly subscribed to the YouTube channel, publicly subscribed, not like hidden or like following us because you have made a bookmark in your browser or something. You need to be publicly subscribed. Then it's possible that next week we draw your name or your username, and then you can win one of two pedals. It's either going to be an FFX pedals Arc of Tone in a limited edition, one-time only color, or it's a Jupiter FX pink Wallow distortion pedal. One of those. So make sure you are publicly subscribed. Otherwise, I won't be able to draw your name. That's going to happen next week.
Next week.
Next
Finally,
week.
after how long have we been doing this for?
Since 1998. Let's stick with that.
1998. Yeah, exactly. Since 1998, we've been trying to give these to someone, and no one wants them. What's going on?
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. Maybe people don't make it to the end of the podcast. That's why they don't know there's a giveaway.
We'll find out. We'll find out.
If they don't want it, can I have them?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
publicly subscribed.
Yeah. And and the other thing, I'm currently working on a few I'm working on the guest list as of now. Summer is kind of disruptive because a lot of people are on vacation, taking a break here and there. But I'll have the chance to, because I'm definitely attending Guitar Summit, I'll have the chance to speak to a few people in person and then hopefully invite them. So especially towards autumn, you're going to see more than just the two dumb faces that you can see at this point.
Hey, dude, speak for yourself, man.
And with that, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks for commenting. If you like what we do, leave a thumbs up or leave a comment. If you've seen us for the first time, please consider subscribing. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a thing. And maybe if you feel generous enough, also hit the bell icon so that you can get notified whenever we air a new episode. And with that, and until the next episode, we salute you. Cheers.